All right, this is Ubaid on behalf of V Electronics, and in this video, we'll be looking at how the changes in the factors of economy impact the components of GDP. All right, now when we talk about components of GDP, we know that these components are the same components for aggregate demand, and these components are number one, okay, your consumption or personal consumption. Okay, number two, this is government spending or investments, such as investment in infrastructure. All right, number three, this would be business investments or investment in capital. All right, and number four, you have net exports. All right, so we'll start off with consumption, and this has to do with personal consumption. Okay, this is what the consumers in a nation consume. So we're talking about domestic spending. Okay, and when it comes to domestic spending, okay, you have economic factors like rise in taxes, okay, your rise in interest rates, so on and so forth. So we'll talk about each one of them. All right, so starting with your consumption or personal consumption, domestic spending. Okay, so let's talk about reductions. Okay, reduction to your aggregate demand. Okay, how will personal consumption reduce your aggregate demand? So when it comes to personal consumption, okay, you have reduction of aggregate demand of AD, and you have an increase, okay, of AD. All right, so this is what your aggregate demand looks like. Okay, and suppose this is your price level, and suppose this is your real GDP. Okay, also your output. So when it comes to reduction of your aggregate demand, this would be reduction of your real GDP as well. Okay, and some of the factors that impact your aggregate demand include but not limited to rise in taxes. All right, so let's say the taxes go up. Okay, we have taxes and tariffs. So rise in taxes. If taxes go up, essentially what's going to happen is, okay, it's going to reduce your aggregate demand. Okay, so we know the demand goes up as production goes up and as price levels fall. So if there is a reduction of aggregate demand because of taxes, okay, your curve for aggregate demand, suppose this is HD, aggregate demand, okay, this curve will shift to the left. Your tariffs went up, as a result of which the consumers are not spending as much as they used to. All right, now apart from reduction of taxes, you also have a fall in income. Okay, so let's say the income falls, so fall in income. All right, so when the income falls, essentially what's happening is this curve over here will shift to the left. All right, the reason why is because as the income falls, okay, the consumers are not able to consume as much as they used to. as a result of which, okay, this curve will shift to the left. All right, next you have rise in interest rates. Okay, so the interest rates go up. So rise in interest rates. And when it comes to rise in interest rates, as interest rates go up, the investments, okay, go up as well because people are more likely to invest rather than spend, as a result of which your aggregate demand for products and services will go down. All right, now apart from interest rates, you also have the desire to save more money. Okay, so let's say desire to save more, and this has to do with your savings. And when consumers decide to save money rather than spend, again, the aggregate demand curve will shift to the left. All right, which means your demand is reduced. All right, now apart from that, you also have a reduction in wealth. So this could be your capital assets, such as your real estate, your vehicles, your equipment, machinery, so on and so forth. Okay, so this is reduction in wealth. Okay, it may also cover your investment accounts, okay, your cash, your savings account, your TFSA, so on and so forth. So as the wealth is reduced, obviously you will not have money, enough money to spend, as a result of which the demand, the aggregate demand will be reduced. Okay, so again, this is a shift of the curve to the left. Now, apart from that, you also have fall in future expected income. So let's say the expected income falls. This is future expected income. And when obviously when the future expected income falls, okay, what's going to happen is this curve over here, the aggregate demand curve, will shift to the left, okay, as the income falls. All right, next up you have an increase of aggregate demand. Okay, this would be because of reduction in taxes. So let's say the taxes are reduced. Okay, so taxes are reduced. So reduction in taxes. So when you have reduced taxes, obviously the aggregate demand will shift to the right because people are able to consume more and spend more. Okay, so aggregate demand will shift to the right. An increase in income. Okay, so let's say the income goes up. Okay, so let's say the income goes up. Now, if there is an increase in income, okay, what's going to happen is, okay, your aggregate demand, okay, will shift to the right. Okay, the reason why is because people will have more money to spend, as a result of which your aggregate demand will shift to the right. Okay, next up you have fall in interest rates. So let's say the interest rates fall. So interest rates, all right, interest rates fall. And because the interest rates fall, what's going to end up happening is people will start consuming more, they will start spending more and investing less. Okay, so because there's not much of a marginal benefit in investing money as a result of low interest rates, people will consume more than invest. Okay, so that will be the impact on aggregate demand, which means that your aggregate demand curve will shift to the right. Now, apart from that, you have desire to save less, okay, which is the opposite of desire to save more. Okay, so save money, desire to save money, this goes down. And because the desire to save money goes down, essentially what's happening is people are consuming, the money circulation within the economy goes up, as a result of which aggregate demand goes up. All right, now apart from that, you have your rise in wealth. So let's say people become more wealthy, they have more capital investments, real estate, okay, they've got money in their bank accounts, so let's say more wealth. Now, because of an increase in wealth, what's going to happen is your aggregate demand will shift to the right. All right. Now, apart from that, you have rise in future expected income. So this is rise future in future expected income. So future expected income. Okay, because the future expected income goes up, what's going to happen is your aggregate demand curve will shift to the right. Okay, because obviously now that the income is more, consumers are willing to spend more. All right, so that would be your personal consumption. Apart from personal consumption, you do have other components as well. Okay, and these components include, but not limited to, okay, your investment, your capital investment from the businesses, okay, as well as investments from the government. Okay, so let's start off with capital investment.